With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
This is Hardcore Grind Podcast, and I have the fabulous Felicia Hamilton. Welcome.
I am so excited. Wow. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so very welcome. You stayed busy, so I was like, I gotta get her. So I'm glad I was able to get you.
It's a good busy these days. It is a good busy, so I'm blessed. I'm excited with everything.
I love it. So, I always like to go with a goal moment, right? Because a goal moment is how you get to get the good stuff on why people move the way they do. Because a lot of times I find that we're really mindful about other people, how they pour into themselves, speak into their own lives. But when it comes to ourselves, we deal with fear a little bit, and we're a little lukewarm in our movement. So when people actually make those steps to do, to go into their vision or to start making different type of moves, I always like to hear, what was that moment like? So I'm going to ask you, what was that moment like when you decided to step into radio?
Oh, my goodness. Well, this is an interesting question because actually, if it was about taking a leap, I probably would not have done it because, like you said, the spirit of fear usually grips people when they're about to do something that, I don't know, has been a goal or something that they want really bad. I actually fell into radio on the humbug. So because it was something that I didn't go in trying to do, it wasn't in the forefront of my mind how intimidating or big it was, because I was just kicking it and hanging out with my friends. And we happened to have a friend who was on the air, and he was switching radio companies. And when he switched radio companies, there were some things that were going on behind the scenes that I can't really go into. But we, as his friends, we were like, hey, when you go on the air on your new show, we're all going to come on with you and like have a big party on that day just to hype it up. And, to give that push or that get the momentum going, because, again, this was a radio company switch for him. So we all went on kind of like as an ensemble cast, an ensemble guest cast, and there was 4 of us. And we were just hanging out as friends in the studio with our friends. And what was interesting about it was that the reception of it was so good that we just kept going back on the air, and we would do it a few days a week. Then it wasn't consistent at first. It might be 3 days here, 5 days, It was just, when we could all do it because we all had other stuff going on. And then 2 of the friends fell off, and then I kept going. So then it turned into a co-host type of situation. And it went on like that for about 3 years, and then they offered me my own show, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. So how has your journey been so far? Now that you have your own show.
I have to laugh because, again, it's starting off as something that I did not plan and turning into something that it being all I had, okay? So, of course, you know me from years and years and years back when I was doing a plethora of different things, on the speaker circuit with Les Brown and writing books and doing conferences myself. And let's see, I think at the time I was in the nightclub business and I had an event venue. So, all of those things were going on. So at the time, radio, even though I was doing it, it was still kind of an afterthought until all of those things, I just slowly but surely, I started taking things off of my plate. And then it got to where radio was the only thing that I was doing. Now we get to the actual journey piece of it, because radio does not, the pay is is really interesting, okay? Let's just put it that way. So coming from having 6 and 7 streams of income to having one, and that one being something that is a fraction of maybe what I was doing, made the journey really interesting. But it was really interesting in a good way because God had so many other plans for me, aside what I was already doing, what I was already involved in. And, there was just a total renewal of what my journey was going to look like, what my walk was going to look like, what my professional future was going to look like. So it's almost like there had to be a clean slate in order to start that foundation of what my next looked like. But the one thing that stayed on the slate was radio. And now here we are all these years later, and now I know why. Because everything else that is getting ready to drop and to happen is an offshoot from radio.
Okay. Now, along your journey, though, what's the best advice you've received?
For radio or just anything? Just radio, right?
We're talking radio right now. What was the best advice you received?
The best advice that I ever received was figure out how to make what you do work for you. And it took me all of these years to figure that out. So this is year 10 in radio, and it took me 9 years to figure out how that whole thing fit, or where I fit in making it work for me. Because for the most part, I have been working in radio, but radio hasn't necessarily been working for me because, I wasn't really seeing the maybe the growth or, just the financial opportunities or, even the brand deals and stuff like that, because I had not really learned how to make it work, how to infuse my life and the life of a radio personality and make that thing be one thing. And I am just getting to the point of figuring it out. So that's why I'm really excited, because even though I've been given that advice consistently over the course of however many years, I just could not figure that thing out for the life of me. And now that I have, I realize why that piece of advice was so valuable.
I love it. Now, I want to go back because you mentioned speaking with Les Brown and writing a book. tell us about because that's a big switch. You went from being an author, speaker, and then now you have a radio show. What was that change like for you? Because when you were an author and you wrote, you were still speaking because you would always do your Facebook. And so you would always still be speaking, but then you went to doing a different kind of speaking. So what was that transition like for you?
Okay, so let's just say there really wasn't a transition. I really kind of just shut down the other part of what my life looked like to only focus on working the job of radio, not the career of radio, not the, just all of the big things that come along with having a profession like that. I literally shut down all of the aspects of what made me the person that I was the moment I stepped on the mic. I don't know, almost like I went through a period of regression, but there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes as well, There were so many things that were going on in my life at the time that were just wreaking havoc and creating chaos in my life. So therefore, what I did was, radio was perfect for me because I could hide in plain sight. You know what I mean? I could be in the mix of things, and I could still use my voice without really tapping into my voice, if that makes any sense. When you're out there on the stage and you're speaking and you're writing and those are very vulnerable moments. And, and when you're really, really true to it, you're giving just about every ounce of yourself. Well, as far as radio is concerned, I would say the first X amount of years in radio, I was not necessarily giving of myself. I was working a job. And so I was in the forefront and doing things that are on the air and, in the public, but at the same time, pretty much closed off behind the scenes and not in a vulnerable place, Yeah. So I would say it wasn't a transition. It was a choice to put some things down for a while because, again, I did not know how to fuse. I did not know how to fuse Felicia, the national speaker, trained by Les Brown, mentored by Dr. Miles Monroe, having met, the founder of Black Enterprise magazine, Earl Graves. So all of those things, I did not bring that stuff into radio with me. I almost forgot in a way, who I was and what those connections were and what that training was like, only because I was going through so much behind the scenes. I almost felt like being out there on the stage, being a motivational speaker, lending my voice to empowering people, I almost felt like it was a fraudulent activity because I did not feel empowered behind the scenes. I did not feel motivated behind the scenes. I did not feel like I was making progress. So I didn't feel like I was credible enough in that season to continue the motivational side and the speaking side and, promoting my books and stuff like that. I just did not feel like that credibility was there because I was going through so much behind the scenes, whereas I could just go clock in and go on the air and perform a job that did not require me to be totally transparent and vulnerable on the air.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about the contributions African Americans have made to media, what is the impact you want your brand to leave?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because after saying all of that I just said, I would like to fully make impact in the space where people can listen to me or watch me, hear me, whatever, read the stuff that I write, listen to me on the air, or, even in this interview, and say, you know what? I can be my transparent, vulnerable self. I can tap into that that innermost place and give people the highest version of me possible, because I'm healthy, I'm whole, I'm happy, and I'm ready to give the world who I am, or who I have always been destined to be. So that is what I would want to leave people. That's the type of impact that I feel I'm ready to leave with the world now, because being on that sabbatical for all of those years, I would say that maybe the last 3.5, I think, because you mentioned earlier in the interview something about me doing the lives or whatever. A lot of people that rock with me in radio really rock with me from listening to my Facebook Live videos years and years ago, and it's just really going back to what makes you who you are, and letting people know you can find your tribe. You can just really step out here and be your true, authentic self, and live in that truth, and be the happiest, most prosperous, abundant version of yourself possible. Because we live in a society right now where everything is put on. Everything is like a production. Everything looks like a facade. Like nothing looks real. And that's why people are so scared to get out here and use their authentic voice, and hone their brand and shape who they are, and really put themselves out, because there's so much of that fakeness out there. And when I say fakeness, I just mean the whole social media concept of perfection and what that looks like. Nothing is perfect, first of all. Nothing is perfect.
Right.
But what is perfectly positioned is us being our individual selves and relishing in that, and not being afraid anymore to impact the world using who we actually are, and not going out here and trying to manufacture a different version of ourselves. And that's what puts us in delay a lot of times with who we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to go, because we feel like we have to manufacture what it is that people are going to see and consume, when really folks are out here waiting on us to be the real us. That's what they're waiting on. And that is what I want to leave. That is the legacy that I want to leave. I want people to see that I went through my period of figuring that out. It is possible to figure it out. And once you do figure it out, baby, it's nothing but up from there. Because once you realize, and once you are delivered from people, and even delivered from yourself, you can take the limits off of yourself, and you can fly. You can fly. And that's what I want to leave with people, So if there's a time where people are out here searching and looking and questioning and doubting and, have that element of fear or what have you, it happens. But in addition to that happening, you can actually get up and just live the best life possible with no hindrances,
I know
So
that's right.
that's where I am. That's where I am, and that's what I want to leave with other people.
I love it. I love it. Now, you talked a little bit about your start. Speaking with Les Brown. I got a Les Brown story, first of all.
Okay.
So, I did a anthology, right? Called
Okay.
Breaking Point.
Uh-huh.
And so we're there to do the Kim Jacobs show. We're doing an interview. And
Okay.
And I was like, okay. She says, okay, hold on, I'm talking to Les. Now, me, I'm not paying attention. I'm like, well, who is Les? Right? So he gets on because he ends up talking to us, right? And he's like, yes, I heard about this book. I want to endorse it, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, oh, okay. Why? He started talking to the visionary. She was talking to her, and then he started talking to me, and the mic stopped working, child. I said, oh, my God. My headset wasn't working. I don't know. I said that was God. That was God telling me, I always wanted you to have a little peek of what you was going to experience, but this was her time. And I was here for her to have her time. But I just want you to know that you're about to have a time. So, how did you start working with Les Brown?
Okay, so it's kind of funny how that happened. I had written my first book, and I knew that I wanted to travel the world, motivating and inspiring people.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure where to start, how to get started, but I knew that it was something that I wanted to do. I felt like I had the gift to do that. And in researching, the top motivational speakers in the world at the time, Les was at the top of the food chain. You had Les Brown, you had Zig Ziglar, you had Dr. Miles Monroe, you had Tony Robbins. That was that era of speakers. And they were like rock stars. And I always went to a lot of conferences. I've always been a perpetual learner, so I love to go to conferences and business seminars and stuff like that. So I went to a conference in Atlanta called FraserNet. And at the time, and I don't even know if they still have FraserNet, but it was a huge networking event that Mr. Fraser would have every year for Black professionals. And he would have speakers from all over, like in all industries. And as a matter of fact, that was at that conference, that is how I met the late Mr. Graves from Black Enterprise. So anyway, this particular year, Les was the keynote. And I was determined to get there. I was determined to meet him, didn't know how it was going to happen. So I got a few of my friends, signed them up as volunteers. They were strategically placed in the room as ushers. And I was like, when he comes off that stage, we're going to make a beeline for him. And that is exactly what happened. Kind of like bum rushed him before he could go on the stage. As a matter of fact, it didn't happen him coming off. It was him going on. And I knew it was like my moment. So I had this whole elevator pitch practice. Like I literally was losing my breath, getting it all out, because it was just like, hi, my name is Felicia L. Hamilton, and and I'm just like spitting it out. And he's like, huh? And I was like, and I thought that meant he didn't quite hear me, so I took another breath. I'm Felicia L. Hamilton, and I'm just rattling off again. He said, no, that's not what I meant. He was like, you want to do what now? Like, he's like, can I go on stage first, and then we talk about afterwards. But he remembered who I was. So when he came off the stage, I was waiting. And I told him that, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be a motivational speaker. I admire your work. I've read your books, basically did my whole spiel again, but in a calmer manner. And he said, well, if you're serious about becoming a motivational speaker and you want to do what I do, you need to be in San Francisco in 2 weeks. I'm doing a speaker training class. And so he handed me this flyer. It was a speaker training class, and I want to say it was like $3,000 or something like that. It might have been more than that. I don't know. But then he ripped it in half, and he was like, you don't have to pay that. Just get out to San Francisco. And I was like, what? And so my mom was there with me, a couple of my friends, a couple of my day ones from back in the day, they were with me. And, of course, they bucking me up, and I made my way to San Francisco 2 weeks later, and I was sitting in his training class, and I pretty much just stalked his every move. And, when it was time for us to, have our one-on-one mentor sessions with him, I kind of gave him my story, let him know where I was from. Just a whole nine. And I also let him know that I was serious about it. I wasn't just out there at a conference, like, just to take a class. Like, this literally was what I wanted to do. And he said, okay. He said, well, I'm going to give you a shot. And 2 weeks later, his assistant called. I was back in Columbus at the time. 2 weeks later, his assistant called and said, Mr. Brown is going to allow you to come with the team. At that time, he traveled with a speaker team. And I flew to New York. He had a speaking engagement in New York, and we were there with him, his speaker team. There was about 8 of us, 8, maybe more. And that's where it started. And I just traveled with him for about 2 years off and on. Of course, I was coming back to Columbus and stuff, but just when he would have big speaking engagements, depending on where you lived in the country is where, he would pull from or what have you. So I had the amazing opportunity to travel with him and learn from him for 2 years. So it was like nothing I've ever done before.
Oh, wow. I know that's right. Now, that's a story. So you've written books. You've toured with Les Brown. You've done so much radio. You are a speaker. Honey, listen, what advice would you give those that are coming into their own? Only because when you get ready to start any type of phase in your life, right, there's always some sort of it's a lot. It's overwhelming because you're trying to think of everything you want to do and then how to do that and then how to do that better, right? What advice would you give those up and coming who decided to either want to be an author or go into media or whatever it is their heart's desire? What advice would you give?
The advice that I would give now would be decide who you want to end up as first. Not writing first, not training first, not, interning first, none of that. Decide who you want to end up as first. And once you figure out that, then reverse engineer your life from there. Because we spend a whole lot of time in the trial and error phases of the hustle, because where we usually end up is kind of not the lane that we started in. And that happens because we don't, we know we want to be inside the grind. We know we want to grind in a hardcore manner. We know we want to succeed. We know we want to be successful, but we don't always know what does that end goal look like. You know what I mean? So I think when I started at 22, because I'm 52 now, so this is 30 years of the grind for me, right? At 22, I had no concept of what I thought my life should or would look like at 52. So that grind, that hustle, that whole where I am right now looks totally different from where I started. So if I had to give my 22-year-old self any type of advice or any age in between, I would say, if you can, at all possible, figure out what you want your life to look like, say, in your 50s, and then reverse engineer back, because that'll save you a whole lot of time.
Say it again for the people in the back.
It'll save you a whole lot of time. It really will, because, again, this is 30 years. It took me 30 years to become as free as I am right now. I'm sitting here talking to you free as a bird. And when I mean free, I don't mean free, I can vote, free, I can come and go as I please. What I mean by free is I am free to be Felicia L. Hamilton in whatever iteration that looks like when I get up, doing it how I want to do it, feeling how I want to feel, expressing myself the way I want to express myself, and feeling confident about doing it and not necessarily worried about how someone else is going to take it or feel about it, because what it's about now is living my truth in a successful, abundant, and prosperous manner. And you have to deliver yourself from people and things before you can possibly do that. And that's where I am right now. And had I done this 15 years ago, this journey would have looked much different.
Absolutely. Now, there's a heavy cost to pursuing your vision and pulling everything together. Who's been your biggest support system along the way?
My mom, of course. If we're talking about people on earth, my mom, definitely, for sure, because I don't think that there was ever a moment, I don't care what it was, if I said I wanted to put airplane wings on a bicycle and ride it to the moon, she would be down with it. You know what I mean? She has always been one of those parents who she just believed I could do whatever it was that I said I was going to do. And there was never any second guessing about it ever, not one time ever that I can recall in my life. She has always been that person to say, whatever it is, I'm down with it. Within reason, of course, but she always fed my dreams.
I love it. So you've done you do radio, books, speaking engagements. What is next for Felicia L. Hamilton?
What is next? My podcast is coming out very soon, and so just stay tuned for that. That's about all I can say right now, but yeah, I'm going for it. I'm going all the way this time. I'm going all the way because I'm very clear. I'm very clear on what she looks like now. I'm very clear on what makes her happy. I'm very clear on what keeps her smiling, and that's the place that I'm going to operate from. So I'm just excited. I'm just excited about it all. So more books, more radio, podcasting, just all the things. And, let somebody pick me up and be their sexy auntie on a on a episode of Power or something like that. I see that being in the mix as well at some point.
I know that's right.
So just, stuff like that. Just living life to the fullest, basically.
Well, I love it. And I thank you for sharing your time, space, and energy with us. I want you to shout out all of your social media where everybody can listen to you, and your website as well.
Okay, for the most part, everybody kind of just catches me on Facebook, Felicia L. Hamilton. My Instagram handle is The Silent Mogul. And let's see, I'm on TikTok, but not a whole lot, so I won't even throw that out there right now, because I'm just adding stuff as we go. But for the most part, catch me on Facebook, Felicia L. Hamilton, or on Instagram, The Silent Mogul. And all of my updates are usually there. I'm doing behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to radio or my books or what have you. But everything that's coming up for me, you'll see it there.
I love it. And we so appreciate you.
Are you struggling to lose weight and keep it off? Tired of wasting time and money on starvation diets that lead to more frustration and stress? If there was a weight loss solution that could actually work for you, would you try it? Then head to Golo.com.
I'm Steve. I lost 138 pounds in 9 months on Golo.
I'm Amber. I've lost 128 pounds with Golo.
If you're ready to take back control of your life, head to Golo.com now and see how Golo can work for you. That's Golo.com.
My sleep is way better. My inflammation has gone way down. Golo saved my life. I was way overweight. That's what sent me down the path. I wanted to make sure and live for my kid.
I have literally tried everything. I was on the verge of getting gastric bypass surgery, and I saw the Golo commercial, and it was the last thing I tried because it worked.
Join over 2 million people who found a better way to lose weight with Golo. Your healthier and happier life begins at Golo.com. That's Golo.com. Again, Golo.com.